And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Season 2 of Choked Out Radio. A lot to talk about. Season premiere. I am your host, Jim Wrestle, or co-host Jim Wrestle, along with Vibes.
In the building.
And?
Yes, sir. This is Miguel Sosa. You already know.
And I'm very happy. Saturday, rainy Saturday, we were taping it, but I'm drenched, but I'm here.
You're here.
Representing Okada, the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada.
Rainmaker.
The best in the world. I know my brother doesn't agree.
we got to get him on the show.
We have to. Season 3.
He thinks Orange Cassidy is better than Hulk Hogan.
No way. And it's prime.
Listen, man.
Yeah.
He's over right now.
He is.
Yeah.
Well, this episode talks about the rise and fall of WCW. Interesting topic, especially for those in our demos, as Metzler, right? Dave Metzler would say, right? In our demo. So a lot happened, right? So I'm not gonna go too far back, but I'll go as far as back as Big Jim, this original Crockett, right? He was he ran the Georgia Championship Wrestling, and eventually Mid Atlantic, for years and years and years. He passed away, and then the Crockett brothers took it over, right? So yeah, man. So they did a great job. They were like the premier, right, league in the Mid Atlantic South. I'll start with you. What are your thoughts? I know we were talking about it a little bit earlier. What are your thoughts? Now, think about this. This is like the beginning of cable, 1983. Starrcade came around. This is before pre-Mania. What are your thoughts leading up to that moment? I know you was one or whatever it was.
Wait a minute.
I won't keep it with age.
We don't speak of
Let's
age.
Yes, let's not.
No.
Yes.
But I think, with the Crockett's, if they would have played their cards right and didn't rush certain things, they probably could have still been around today. They could have still been either the number 1 or number 2 promotion. They had some of the best the wrestlers out there. They were regional to the Carolinas, and they started making like insane amounts of money and were spending it faster than it was coming in. And had they taken their time and had real business people surrounded by them, I think they could have still been around.
Yeah.
Looking back, like watching a lot of that wrestling from back then, there was a lot of good matches, a lot of Hall of Famers in there.
Yeah.
People wanted to go work there. It's similar to what's going on now. Like, you have WWE, you have AEW. There's people that want to go work at AEW because like they just want to wrestle.
Exactly. It's more about the wrestling.
Yeah. So, Jim Crockett Promotions was ahead of its time, but with the things that they were doing led to what WWE is now.
Right.
Because they had Super Bowl before WrestleMania.
Right. Starrcade, same
thing. Starrcade. That's what I meant. Starrcade before Mania happened.
Yeah.
And there's some interesting like back and forth as to how Mania was paid for, but it's a long show. We'll get into that later.
Yeah, we don't have enough time.
What are your thoughts on? I know you was maybe a thought.
I was a sperm during that time. But yeah, man, they had talent that eventually, they lost. Yeah. So eventually, I think that was what caused their demise eventually, because they had so much talent that, they all went over to WWE because Vince, that's what he does. Yeah. You know what I mean? He just takes everybody.
He just took everyone. Yeah, long term, that's what he did. He cherry picked everyone.
Yeah, cherry picked all the best from each territory. You know what I mean? But during that time period, like you mentioned, you have cable now. Right. Like, cable is becoming like the main stream.
It's like streaming now.
Yeah, like streaming. How streaming is now. So I think like the mentality was like, I don't think they had the right vision of how to go about it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Just like anything, you know what I mean? When something is hot, people want to jump into it. Yep. It's just you got to go into it the right way. Right. You know what I mean? I don't think they went into it the right way. Yeah. Yep. And then I think as we see, this is the difference between WWE and all those other companies back then.
Exactly. Yep. So Black Saturday, I know the year was 84. I don't remember the date exactly. So Vince, his mindset at the time, and he admitted it on the DVD, was he had primetime wrestling, whatever show on USA, right? And he wanted to really, at the time, TBS was the premier show, right? 6:05 every Saturday for 2 hours. That was wrestling, right? Yeah. So his goal or vision was to take that spot and have what and used at that time TBS was everywhere, almost at every single cable provider, right? Not like now how you have certain things that are not on Time Warner or Spectrum versus Optimum versus Fios, right? So TBS was everywhere. So his thought was he wanted to penetrate, I guess, both ways, right? Get on USA and also use that exposure, and at the same time poach or cherry pick that talent as well.
Exactly.
So the legend goes that he tried to use that sports entertainment stuff for a couple of months, or right in 1984, and did not work out. Right. A lot of people that were diehard Middle Atlantic fans at the time didn't like the whole thing. What are your thoughts on that?
So
we're talking from 84, right?
I actually have the date. It was July 14th. Fat God.
Fat God. There you go.
God. July 14th.
Mark guy.
Mark.
Of 84, Vince called Ted Turner.
Yeah.
And offered him like $500,000 a year so that he can steal the Crockett's time slot.
Right.
And he did it.
Yeah.
So they got that. They called Jim Crockett Promotions, told him you're off TV, and then it was odd, like seeing World Championship Wrestling background, and then Vince McMahon with a WWF microphone, saying, this is Vince McMahon for World Championship Wrestling. That was crazy.
Right.
Yeah, I gotta look that up.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah.
And the fans in those areas where TBS was, especially in Atlanta, the Carolinas, anywhere down
Virginia,
south,
that area,
they weren't feeling it. They were like, nope, this is not us, and the ratings started to decline. And Ted Turner called Vince and told him, that's it, like we're done, our deal's over. Yeah, and
he killed him.
Sorry,
it's okay.
The Crockett's actually
repurchased
the time slot for $1 million, and the rumor is that $1 million helped fund WrestleMania.
Yep. So the Crockett's paid for WrestleMania 1.
That's insane. I didn't even know that.
You didn't know that stuff?
I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that. That's crazy. And the thing is, like, I mean, did he plan that on killing them in that sort of fashion, or that wasn't even planned?
I don't know.
You think?
Good question. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like a what if.
That was something behind his mind, like he planned it ahead of time, like.
Let me buy this slot only to flip it and resell it.
Honestly, I don't know him personally. I wish I did. I've seen him. I've seen him in person one time in an elevator. Almost had a heart attack, but I wouldn't put it past him. He's a freaking businessman. He's a savage. He wouldn't be where he's at today without destroying everyone in his path.
Yeah,
he put all these other promoters. Well, I don't want to say he put them out of business because there's speculation that he did and he didn't. But rumor is that he did call them and offer them, sell me your company and I'll make you rich. And they were like, no. And he just put them out of business.
Wow. Right. Wow. So with the board, this is probably in the 80s, mid-80s time slot. So the NWA board consisted of 9 different promoters, right? And at the time they voted for Ric Flair, a young Ric Flair, right? To kind of everyone wanted their guy as the world champ because it's obviously free publicity for them, right? So what are your thoughts on them voting on Ric Flair? He was young at the time. What are your thoughts on that? And Ric Flair being the flag bearer at that time?
I think without the NWA, Ric Flair wouldn't be who he is today. Like they put him on the map. They made him the man. Obviously his in-ring work, phenomenal. Those matches with Steamboat and Dusty and insane. But, there was always that. There's Hogan in one territory and you have Ric Flair in the other, and in my opinion, nobody compares to Flair.
Right.
That's just me.
I mean,
what are your thoughts, man?
He's the GOAT. You know what I mean? He's the greatest of all time, and we'll talk about more Flair as we continue doing more shows. But
yes.
I'm telling you, man, I think it was a great choice in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like Flair, I mean, just. He didn't really have a track record during that time period, but as we come to find out, this guy is just unbelievable in the ring, in and out. He was a good representation of that company, So, and like you mentioned, you have Flair on one side and you have Hogan in the other,
right.
But Flair is just so mainstream. Eventually, he became so mainstream, But it was a great choice. It was good in my opinion.
The thing about Flair is, whoever he was in the ring with became a superstar.
Yeah.
So like Steamboat, superstar. Sting, superstar.
Yeah.
Vader, superstar. Anybody he stepped in the ring with, because he had this thing where he basically get his ass kicked the whole match.
Yeah, and not only that, and we got to remember too, Flair traveled everywhere.
He did, yeah. He traveled to all the territory. St. Louis was he sold out St. Louis. I was like, wow, that's big. At that time, St. Louis was like a premier territory.
Yeah, he wrestled all over. I mean, he wrestled all over the world.
Yeah. The world, yeah.
As representing them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he had feuds with pretty much all the major players in other countries as well. He went. I mean, I don't remember Japan, but I remember him going to Puerto Rico, going even to the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
You know?
It was a riot when he was there.
Yeah.
He wrestled Jack Veneno. And he was afraid to lose because of the crowd, the way they were reacting. So he changed the finish during the match, and he lost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, he was afraid to win, so he changed the finish during the match. He actually lost. The title reign is not recognized by the NWA, but he did it because he said if he won, there was no way he was making it out of the building.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the next night, in a different town, he won the title back and then jumped on a plane and left.
Yeah, he ran out of there.
So the Crockett's were ahead of their time, as you said, right, for a lot of things, right? So they bought it back, right? So you had the 80s, the shows versus, I guess the Crockett, right before Ted Turner took over, right? So they had this guy, Magnum TA, right? He was supposed to be like the next big thing, right? Unfortunately, he got into a big car accident. What are your thoughts on Magnum TA, or what ifs? You think he would have been world champ?
Man, I think
at that time,
Magnum could have been bigger than Hogan. In all honesty, he had the look, he had the charisma, he had the mind, he had it all, and it was just unfortunate that car accident paralyzed him. I know they kept him on screen, like
just not the same, right?
It wasn't the same. Like there was an angle that they did, and I was just like, why? Like, why are they doing this? It's just looking back at it now, I'm like, this makes no sense. But had he not gotten injured, like he had the backing of everyone.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like a world title, like long-term feud, him and Flair? Yeah, would have been insane.
Yeah,
Exactly.
he was a good-looking guy during the time. You know what I mean? And he had that look, like you said, the long blonde hair.
Yep.
The
mustache.
The mustache, which was, I mean, he looks very similar to Hogan.
Right.
He had, I mean, but he had at that time, he had the best mustache in the business. Like that Tom Selleck mustache.
Yeah. Compared it to Magnum PI's. Magnum TA, Magnum
Oh,
PI.
yeah.
There
Wow.
you go.
Look at that. Wow. For all you kids out there who don't know what
They
that
don't know
is.
what that is.
Google it.
Google it.
Yeah, because they won't know about
No,
that.
they
Wow,
won't know.
you brought it back.
Put it back.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So, he had that whole look, and it's very unfortunate what happened to him.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah. So their financial trouble, as Vibes mentioned earlier, they're right. They were ahead of their time. They were great wrestling minds. They weren't great business minds, right? So Ted Turner saves them, and eventually they became WCW, right? So this is what we're known, to today, right? So WCW. What are your thoughts growing up? Let's say the mid '90s, 91, 92, 93. Versus WWF. So, yeah, we had the alternative. I was more of a WWF guy at the time, but I always felt that the wrestling was always better. And it's on the DVD as well. The wrestling was always better on for WCW. What are your thoughts at that time?
Look at the talent they had, man. They had Butch Reed. They had Ron Simmons. They had
Vader.
Road Warriors, Vader, the Four Horsemen, Sting. RoboCop, like the list goes on and on.
Shockmaster,
Shock.
They,
Wow.
they had
Harlem Heat.
Chucky?
yeah, Chucky.
Chucky
at
was
one
there
point.
too. Yeah,
Made an appearance.
they had the Steiners. They had some of the top the Rock and Roll Express. They had some of the top tag teams, the Midnight Express, and some really, really, really good wrestling. And these guys were going out there doing 60 minutes a night, like nothing, and fans were eating it up. But good wrestling, bad business.
Right.
It doesn't always mix. Like they were filling up arenas, they were doing everything the right way, but behind the scenes, it was just like it was a revolving door of who was in charge, and that was always like the demise of WCW.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, the talent they had was unbelievable, but they had stars that they didn't even know they had.
Yeah.
Right.
They had Taker.
Yep.
They had Austin.
Diesel.
Nash.
Yep.
I mean Nash and
Nash
Hole.
and Hole,
you know, Like I think
even Steve Austin later on, which we'll talk about.
Yeah,
right?
Steve Austin, Stunning Steve. They had Brian Pillman, Flying Brian.
Yeah.
You know, God rest his
Jericho.
soul. They had Chris Jericho.
Eddie
later
Guerrero.
on. They had we can name so many right now. It's unbelievable. But and what we all know is that they had a problem creating stars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just eventually it's gonna bite them in the ass. You know, and just all the bad financial decisions they ended up making.
Right. What are your thoughts on the WWF side at that time? They were the number one, obviously, and then you had the whole steroid scandal. Did it hurt them a little bit? Maybe, maybe not. They were still number one, but what are your thoughts on that during that time?
At that time, it was like, the business was down. It wasn't this like, Hogan had taken time off, and with the whole steroid scandal, and it was very cartoony.
Yeah.
5 years prior, it was cool. You had all the characters and everything, but those kids are now growing up that are watching this, and most kids lose interest.
Yeah.
I don't want to come watch TV and see a clown on TV or see, a
Quang
guy,
or something like that.
Was the goon,
right?
Bashing Booger, like it was just, it was very cartoony,
Duke
very
the Dumpster Jones.
very
Garbage Man.
very character driven.
Just
and-
occupations. Dentist,
Yeah,
Isaac Yankem.
yeah.
It was like
dentist.
blue collar workers.
Blue collar. The plumber.
Yeah. That was their way of, I guess, because I guess they weren't being creative enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like,
Let's just look at the
give them all
official.
jobs.
Give them all jobs.
And that's
the
what
employee
it's-
handbook, and let's just look at jobs.
Let's go down the list. We have a taxman.
IRS.
We have what was it? A garbage man. We have a clown. I think that's what they did during that time. But I mean, we're talking about early 90s.
Early
right?
90s, yeah, early 90s.
Like we're not talking about the late 80s.
No.
Right?
91,
Yeah,
92.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I mean, also during that time, Ric Flair left WCW.
Yep, that's a whole thing which we'll get into, right?
Yeah.
So Ric Flair leaves, right? Obviously, he leaves the WWF, but that's a separate episode. But I do want to get into Eric Bischoff. What are your thoughts? Eric Bischoff gets put in charge, a young guy. He was originally on-camera guy, or on-camera personality, but now he's in charge of, I guess, WCW. What are your thoughts initially?
Very smart person, but very ego-driven.
Yeah.
Like he had to be number one, and his main focus was putting WWE out of business, and that was the demise of everything that he put into it.
Mm-hmm.
The NWO was a great idea, created by Bischoff, saving WCW tons of money by moving them from the big arenas to studios and Disney, saved them tons of money. So he was doing all the right things, but he started believing his own hype too much. And had he not made the same mistakes 10 years prior that the Crockett's made, WCW would probably still be here right now.
Yeah. But I don't think I don't think he was ego driven in the beginning. Maybe
No,
he
in the
was.
beginning.
I think he was, new, fresh,
Fresh to business,
fresh
right?
to the business
Right,
pretty
right.
much. But
Right.
he had a good business mentality.
He's a visionary.
Yeah, he's a visionary. And I think eventually it just got to his head, especially when he had all that money,
Yeah.
to sign all these stars later on down the road.
Yeah.
And, that I think their demise at the end of the day was just all those horrible financial decisions. they made.
Horrible contracts that they gave out. Right?
Yeah, I
All
mean,
these
think about
guaranteed-
it. It's kind of like sports, right?
Yeah.
If you're a sports franchise, you're not gonna have these veterans that have been playing in the sport for over 10, 15 years.
Right.
And then sign them into max contracts.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You wouldn't do that. Because,
You wouldn't do that,
right?
because
Because of age and past their prime and all that. Right?
Exactly.
And plus salary cap against the team. And all that.
Exactly.
Right. You
So-
can sign younger other talent
You could sign younger guys
Right.
for less.
for less money.
You know what I mean? And build them up or whatever.
Right.
And that's, it's just not, we know that it's common sense.
Right.
But they didn't think that.
Right.
No.
Yeah. So it's Bischoff, right? Taking a step back, Flair leaves, right?
Yeah.
There's a big fallout, as you said.
What was
Revolving
it, 91?
91, yeah, he left in 91, brought the belt, right, to WWF television, right? What are your thoughts on that at that time? Revolving door, right? Dusty was in charge, and there was somebody else.
The Watts.
The Watts, right?
This guy that used to run Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
Who else ran that place?
Which is
It was just a revolving door.
of leadership. What are your thoughts on at that time?
it was a big mistake to let Flair leave.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy, like seeing him in WWE, WWF,
Right.
And show up. Well, the belt first showed up first, Bobby Heenan,
Right.
and I remember them like
pixelating
it, and Heenan was holding it on Superstars, and I was like, what is that?
Right.
You know, what were we like? We were kids.
Okay.
So it was like, yo, what does he have in his hand?
Right.
You know, the following week, a couple weeks later, Flair shows up, and it's like, what the hell is he doing here? Like, how? Like, why is he here? Like, he's a WCW guy,
Right.
Yep.
an NWA guy. It was a mistake letting him leave, because he was the face of the company. That's similar to after WrestleMania 6, Hogan would have left.
Right.
After he lost to the Warrior and showed up like
On Saturday night.
Yeah.
WCW
Yeah.
Saturday night.
I mean, during I can't remember even before that time period any superstar moving over to another company.
Right.
I mean, between WCW and WWF at the time.
Right.
I don't remember anybody jumping ship.
not that big of a name.
Yeah,
Okay,
like
right.
that big of a name, exactly. So Flair made that change, and I think it kind of like boosted them up a bit. You know, it was a spark,
Right.
You know, because 1992 had some great events.
Yeah.
You know, and Flair was involved in pretty much that
all
all
the
of
main
them.
ones, right?
You know,
Royal
he-
Rumble,
yeah.
WrestleMania,
But
SummerSlam.
it also gave a chance for some other talent in WCW to get elevated.
Right.
Because, you know, had Flair still been there, I don't think Ron Simmons would have ever won the championship.
True.
That feud he had with Vader was, you know, you can go back and watch it now. That crowd went ballistic.
But he didn't have a good run.
No, he didn't.
No.
He didn't have a
You
good
know,
run.
but the build up and, you know, the whole he was the
Story.
first ever, you know,
African American
yeah,
champion.
and like the crowd reaction, like that stuff, that's timeless.
Yeah.
Sting, you know, really broke out on his own.
Of course, you had Luger,
Dustin Runnels. He had that match in a truck,
right?
in a moving truck.
Bunkhouse
Brawl. Yeah, it was crazy.
Against Bunkhouse Buck.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
That was insane.
That was great.
They got in trouble for bleeding,
Yeah.
and then I think he got fired
Right.
because of that, which was stupid.
Right.
But you know, they had a lot of stars that were able to get elevated.
You know what sucks too? Like, and I always think of this. Sting, it was like he belonged in WWF
Yeah.
because he had the face paint. He was the blonde, spiky hair.
Right. Blade Runner, the Warrior.
Yes,
Had a similar to Warrior.
The bright colors.
Yep.
And I like he would have flourished in WWF during that time.
He
Imagine,
came so late. So many
yeah,
years so late.
it just sucks so much that he got there so late.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like the what ifs.
Right.
You know, the imagine Warrior versus Sting. They were a tag team.
Right.
They were a tag
The
team.
story writes itself, right?
Yeah, imagine that. That would have been amazing, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, it didn't happen.
Yeah. So Flair leaves right after whatever in 1993. He has a loser leaves town on Raw against Perfect. He leaves. He's back in WCW. So now at that time, right, WWF is going through some transitions, as you mentioned, new generation, new fans, right, or they're going through a transition, let's say. So now Hogan signs with WCW, right, 1994. We're up to 1994. What are your thoughts on that?
It was huge.
It was huge.
They had a parade.
They had the parade.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember
In
that.
downtown Disney.
Universal?
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember watching Saturday night, and then they spoiled it, but they had like the ticker across the screen, Hulk Hogan signs, and Tony Schiavone was going crazy.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way. And then I saw him. You know, he looked different. He looked slimmer.
Yeah, because it was post steroids. So
Yeah.
He wasn't as
He wasn't
big.
bulky.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, you know, looking back now, I don't agree with his first match being for the title
at Bash at the Beach
against Flair
in Orlando, and Shaq is a ref or enforcer. Or whatever.
It didn't. We watched that together.
I actually ordered it.
Yeah.
I actually ordered Bash at the Beach '94.
We were at your house.
Yeah.
I still remember that, and we were just like, "This is so bad."
I know.
It's like Shaq.
No,
Like,
it's
just
like because
terrible.
again they were trying to be like
WWE.
WWF,
Yeah.
you know, WWE.
Yeah.
Like I didn't, you know, they were trying to like, you know, make it more mainstream, and now it's like
Michael Buffer, right? He
yeah,
was that ring announcer.
I heard he charges like $1 million
To say ready to rumble.
Yeah, just to say
Cha-ching, million.
that. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's boss moves, man.
yeah, man.
But yeah, that started the wave of the older guys coming over.
Mm-hmm.
So it was
Macho
just
came
like
after that, right?
Macho.
Yeah, was it a few months
Hacksaw.
after that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Macho, Hacksaw,
Big Bossman.
Bossman, but Bossman was always jumping back and forth.
Yeah.
Um,
Who else? Mr. Perfect later on
yeah,
transitioned over.
DiBiase.
And Avenging Six.
$1 Million Man, X-Pac, Holden Nash. We come to find out a couple years later. But think about the guys that went over to WWF.
Right.
You had Triple H.
Yeah, terrorizing.
Terrorizing.
Sexton Hardcastle, which was
Yeah.
Edge.
Who the hell?
It was Edge.
Stop.
Yeah.
Wait, what was his name?
Sexton Hardcastle.
Nah, bro. That's like a
He
porno
wrestled-
name.
Yeah, it does.
He wrestled
What was he,
in WCW Saturday Night.
Nah,
Yeah.
man.
Rob
What a-
Van Dam wrestled Saturday Night.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was there.
He was there.
They had so again, we had Triple H, Austin, Stunning Steve Austin, Flying Brian,
Mick Foley. We spoke about that.
yeah, well Cactus Jack.
Jack.
They had who else? They
Mean
had?
Mark Callis.
That's right.
Oh
Undertaker,
yeah,
of course.
Taker. But Taker was there like what 1990,
1990.
right?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
couple years before.
89?
A couple years before, right?
Yeah.
1990.
Yeah, he was in a,
See, the
in a
thing-
tag team, right, or something like
The
that.
thing with WCW, like prior to Bischoff coming in, and even when he was there, they would always, you know, they had guys that were hungry, and then they would tell them straight up, like, no one's ever gonna pay money to see you, and that's what happened with Taker.
Yeah,
Which is unfortunate for them because they lost out on a good talent, and that happened a lot. Like it happened with Austin.
Yeah.
You know, he got fired via FedEx. You
Yeah.
know, they sent him a FedEx.
Yeah.
And then that's how they let him go. And it lights a fire under these guys because then they have something to prove.
Right.
Absolutely.
all right, little white
Choked out radio whiskey.
little choked out radio whiskey.
That's
you
right.
already
It's
It's
know.
better than Propel, Connor. Eat your heart out.
Oh my gosh.
So 1994, right? So Hogan and everyone comes over. So now we're in the year 95. We were just talking about how they're cartoony. Yeah. We're talking how they were very cartoony, right? With all these occupation gimmicks, right? And then of course WCW is also cartoony, but you had a lot of guys, veteran guys, come over. That was the main feud was Dungeon of Doom and Hogan in 1995, which we kind of spoke about the last season. But what are your thoughts on the year 95 WWF and WCW at that time?
It was just a transition year for everyone. It was just like, let's just get to this year and see what happens, because it was, you know, like you said, on both sides, it was cartoony. You had like these fictional dungeon of guys going after and killing Hulkamania, which like everybody wants
They
to
shaved
kill.
his mustache.
Yeah,
man.
they did.
Yeah.
They shaved the iconic mustache.
and he was
Yeah.
wearing all black,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which was like the, you know,
The opposite of red and yellow.
yeah.
Right?
But he had to go to the dark side to fight the Dungeon of Doom. It was just so, it was so 1980s cartoonish.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that they got turned off by it. Like I didn't.
No,
really
and it
care
makes
for
you
it.
wonder like who's really like coming up with these storylines.
Yeah.
Because I wonder if Hogan had a say in it, you know, because that's
Yeah, he
something
had
that
some say,
something
right?
that he was used to, you
Right.
know.
Right.
But yeah, man. And the thing is, like we spoke about in episode 1,
Right. Well,
last
1996.
season, yeah,
Right.
like 1996, like it was a huge transitional period.
Yeah.
They're focusing more on younger talent in WWF, smaller guys now, you know, and WCW now has like these older superstars from WWF,
Yeah.
and they're focusing on them,
Right.
you know,
Instead of building all the other
instead of
talent.
building the other talent.
So it was like the opposite
Yeah,
of what the other guys were doing.
and the main players later on down the road were guys that WCW lost,
Right.
that they let go. They
Right.
either fired them or they just didn't like
Re-sign 'em or
invest in them, and
Right.
they just left,
Right.
and it bit them in the ass.
The amount of future Hall of Famers that they just like let walk out the door, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
And that
unbelievable.
just goes to show you, like, you know, you don't know what you have
Right.
until it's gone. Because, you know, unfortunately, the same thing, history is going to repeat itself now.
Yeah.
You got a lot of guys that are not being used correctly and just want to leave. And when they go somewhere else, you know, they reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
You know, Kenny Omega was in WWE.
It's
Look
true.
what he did in Japan.
Right.
AJ Styles was there too.
It's crazy. Nakamura.
Nakamura was there?
No, I'm kidding. He wasn't. Not in WCW.
He was in the Orient Express.
Yes.
Wow.
Imagine.
They all had
No.
the same song. I was mad. I don't
Yo.
want to say racist, but every Asian.
I'm gonna tell you something, man.
It's problematic.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, watching the WWE Network, you catch so much stuff, man.
It's racist.
That
Yeah.
like they just I don't know. We'll talk about it more.
Yeah,
as time goes
So
on.
we're fast forward to '96, which we already kind of discussed a little bit.
Yes.
But I want to get into the backstory a little bit. The NWO. We all know the story, right? About the NWO. What are your thoughts on WCW? It kind of saved them a little bit, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the NWO? What are your thoughts at the time seeing
yeah.
Scott Hall on WCW TV? Nitro, right? Obviously came out in '95 to compete with Raw. Let me take a step back. Labor Day '95, Monday Nitro. Lex Luger comes out. What are your thoughts on Luger showing up? What are your thoughts on them, creating that primetime slot?
Now that was the first episode of Nitro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in the
first
Mall of
In
America.
the
Yeah.
Mall of America.
So I was always confused as to how his hair grew so long
Yeah.
in a short period of time.
Yeah, short hair.
Yeah, he had short hair,
Yeah.
and then he came out
The next day.
the next day because there was a pay-per-view the night before.
Wasn't it
Right.
SummerSlam?
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, wait.
No.
Labor Day.
yeah. It was.
It could have been like a late SummerSlam. Who knows?
I think it was
Or
a
show.
week after SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Okay.
He showed up and I was just like, how does hair grow so fast? Maybe he had I don't
Extensions.
know. Maybe he had extensions.
Extension.
But I thought it was pretty cool because Raw wasn't airing that night because of the dog show.
Oh gosh, I used to hate those dog
Yeah.
shows.
So it was
my God.
preempted due to the dog show.
Dog show
And,
or the U.S. Open, one of the two.
and so Nitro aired the first night on unopposed, and I was like, holy crap, I gotta watch this next week. But then I was like, wait a minute, there's another show on. I can't watch this next week.
Right.
So that started the whole
Monday Night Wars.
VCRing, recording one,
That's right.
and then watching it later. Which now we have DVR, which is great.
yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Labor Day '95, Monday
was-
Nitro, the start of the Monday Night Wars, basically?
It was great. It was great. He showed up. It was Hogan against. Wasn't it Hogan wrestling during
No,
that
it was
time
Flair
period?
and
It was
Savage.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Flair and Savage.
Yeah.
And he just shows up.
Or
Yeah.
Flair and Sting or something like that.
Yeah, it was
was
like
Flair
it
and
was
Sting.
like main event. I
it was
think.
Flair and Sting.
Yeah, and I think that was the beginning of the Monday Night Wars right there.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously because it was
Yeah.
their first episode, but that was a good move by WCW. That was smart because it kind of paved the way for what's to come, like what their motive was. Like they're there to kill WWF, WWE,
Right.
and by doing that, we're gonna take your main player. He was main eventing WrestleMania. He was a top guy on during that
That time frame.
year.
That
Yeah,
year,
So I mean, they gave him a huge push, and eventually he could never beat Yokozuna.
He slammed him.
He
He
slammed
the
him.
Intrepid.
Yeah, man.
Knocked
It
him
was-
unconscious on the outside.
The
That was
Intrepid
it.
almost freaking sunk because
Sunk,
of that.
yeah.
man. Imagine. I
Years-
remember they
years to repair it.
dude, they rented a freaking helicopter
Right.
just so he can show up. I mean, it was dope.
I heard on another show that ring was sitting under the sun for so many hours.
Oh, that it was hot. Yeah.
It was so hot, and
Yeah.
like Yokozuna's feet were burning on that mat.
Oh yeah.
And like notice nobody touched the ropes because they were so hot, like
Wow.
those plastic ropes under that
Yeah, of course.
July sun. Like
With no shade.
Yeah.
And no
No,
canopy.
like, what were they
over it.
thinking?
I know.
It was a good marketing
Marketing campaign.
campaign
at
that
the
they
time.
had there, but yeah, so pretty much it was a smart move on their part. Lex Luger moving over.
Yeah.
Around that time I think Raw was still at the Manhattan Center.
yeah,
So they really didn't have, all I can remember during that time period that Raw was like, oh my gosh, was when ECW went
Invaded.
over to invaded Raw at
Right.
the Manhattan Center. Other than that, they didn't have any oh my god moments during that time.
yeah.
WCW had more of that.
Right.
And I think,
I mean,
guys-
with the wrestling too, like
Yeah.
the first match on Nitro was Liger against Brian Pillman.
Brian Pillman, yeah.
And they stole the show, and that was just like that was the beginning of what to expect.
Shout out to Liger.
the
Just recently
first-
retired.
Just
Yes.
retired, man.
Just
Shout
retired.
out to Liger.
Huge shout out.
And like every because of WCW, more American fans got to see the lucha style, the Japanese wrestling style,
Japanese wrestling.
you know, by bringing all these guys in. And you know, like that, you knew that first hour,
It's gonna be good.
don't miss it, because you were gonna have like Hoovy against Ray, or you know, Guerrero against Malenko, and or Jericho against Malenko, and that, you know, it was just like, it was can't miss TV, and it was just like, all right, you got all the old guys later on or starting the show, but this is the reason we watch. These are the reason that people are buying these pay-per-views. This is the reason we're tuning in every week, because we're seeing things we never saw before. Like dives to the outside, Hurricane Rana's, like, shit was insane.
That was all new.
Yeah, it was all new to us.
I mean, let's not forget ECW.
No, well, ECW, yes, they were the originators of bringing in
the lucha
style.
Yeah,
Right.
But not everybody got
we didn't
ECW TV.
exactly.
Right.
Not everyone
We got it
watched
because like we got it at 2 a.m. and we stayed up and watched it.
Right.
And then we were exposed. I remember Rey Mysterio giving a Hurricane Rana psychosis in the parking lot.
Right.
Like, that was crazy.
Right. Right.
You know, and then you see it on national TV, and you're like, damn, this is so dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Nitro, right? They started Nitro, so they had Mondays and Saturdays, right? So they wanted to kill WWF, right? So they sign Hall and Nash to lucrative contracts, right? So we get into that. So Hall comes out Memorial Day, I never forget, 1996, right?
Yeah.
I think we kind of spoke about it a little bit on the previous podcast, but what are your thoughts there? To kind of, because we're kind of like going in a little timeline until the end, right? 2001. So what are your thoughts? 1996. Hall comes out, he says it'll bring his buddy Nash the next week, and eventually they...
96 was great. It was a great time to be a fan, man. It was just like, everything was new, everything was different, it was shocking. It was more reality-based.
Right.
And like we said in, you know, Season 1, Episode 1, available on YouTube, and wherever your podcasts are available. You know, it was... You really believe that they were there to invade on behalf of
Vince McMahon.
They even got sued for it. Vince McMahon sued them for it because they were coming out and they were like, "No, you want a war? That's what we're here. We're here to start a war." And it was just like
Monday Night Raw.
What are you talking about?
Was it Raw's War?
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah.
And not only that, now they're using their real names.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not using any gimmicks.
Not using Razor, not using Diesel.
No, and like you mentioned, now it's becoming more reality based, and WWF is like, oh shit.
And
like,
it was like every
now we gotta
week,
do that
like
the same thing.
They were beating people down. They threw Rey Mysterio like a dart into the side of the production truck.
Yep.
Yeah, it was must see TV.
It was.
Yeah,
Must see
Yeah.
TV. Like
that whole beatdown in the back lot.
yeah.
People in the surrounding area really thought it was a gang fight. They
Yeah,
really
they
called the cops.
They called the cops.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yep.
Because they
called
really
the cops.
believed it was real. Like, it was a real gang fight.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
'Cause
good times.
I remember, like, Sting was wrestling, and then I think the ref was like, "You gotta go. You gotta go out." And he was like, the look on his face, like, and as a fan, you're like, "Yo, is this real?
Right.
Like, is this really happening?" I remember it ended, and then I put the news on, and I was like, "This has to be on the news. Like, this was real. Like, there was a whole brawl. It was like it never happened, never came on." So I felt like an idiot. But you know, at the time, you're like, "Yo, this is bugged out."
Yeah.
Like they're like, these guys really are here to cause damage. Like, Arn Anderson was laid out. He got hit in the head with a bat or something, and like other people were unconscious. Woman was crying.
Yeah.
And you had heels and faces.
Yeah, they were together.
Teaming up against the NWO.
Right.
You know, it wasn't like it didn't feel like there was a storyline. It was straight up
real, right?
Yeah, it felt so real. Like, it was just like these guys representing WCW. They're like, we work for this company, and these guys are coming after us, and it really felt like they represented WWF.
Yeah.
So and if you remember, it was, I think, Sting and someone from the Four Horsemen, was it? I forgot who it was, but they looked at each other and they just ran out together.
Yeah.
To help, fight
was it Benoit?
NWO.
I don't think it was Ben.
No.
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Maybe it was Arn Anderson. Maybe it was Arn
maybe.
Anderson.
Yeah, because I remember seeing the Four Horsemen joining them in the fight backstage, and then Poor Ray.
Ray,
Poor
Ray.
Ray,
Yeah,
man.
throwing like a lawn dart.
Yeah, man. That was dope. That was
It's
dope.
an iconic moment. in
Yeah.
History.
So I don't have the ratings in front of me, but obviously the momentum started to shift, right? Because everyone was more reality based, and even movies and even society was moving into that. Even music, everything was shifting, right? More reality based. So
Yes.
they were winning the war, right? The Raw versus Nitro,
Yes.
1997, right? Sold out 97. What are your thoughts? They made it so crazy, right? To the point that they made their own pay per view. They made it seem like it was their pay per view and not WCW, even though we all knew. Well, at the time, I don't know.
They won every match, right?
Right.
Yeah, it was just
Yeah,
like,
Nick Patrick as he was NWO at the time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They paid him off or whatever, and
Yeah.
it was a screw finish like every match.
Yeah.
so
So
that,
Chono beat Jericho. Big Bubba Rogers defeated Hugh Morris. Jeff Jarrett defeated Mr. Wall Street. That was IRS, I guess, right?
Like they couldn't think of a better
Better
name.
day. It was so like vanilla, right?
VK Wall Street.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Vincent Kennedy, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, what a jab. Buff Bagwell, Scotty Riggs, right? Defeated Scotty Riggs. Scott Norton defeated DDP by countout. Steiner Brothers defeated the Outsiders. All right. Okay, so they gave him a win. Guerrero defeated Six. That was a great ladder match for the U.S. Heavyweight Championship. And Hogan fought the Giant to a no contest. This is when the Giant was on WCW side, right? For now.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts, man? So WCW, they were winning the ratings. They waited to the point that they had their own pay-per-view. So what are your thoughts on that? In
this is where it started to take a turn for the worse. Like it was just getting. They were drinking too much of the Kool-Aid, man. Like they were believing their own hype.
They had too much of this.
They were believing their own hype. Like that pay-per-view was terrible. I don't even know how many buy rates it got. I know it wasn't a lot. It was just terrible.
Yeah. It's like if D-Generation X.
Well, they had their own pay-per-view.
Yeah, but it wasn't
like
the way
every single match was a member of DX.
Yeah.
Like
versus
this was
WWF, right?
every single match was an NWO match.
Yeah.
It was like by the end of the night, you didn't even want to hear that song anymore because they just played it for everybody.
Every entrance.
Not every jobber. The jobbers had their own that one, and then the main eventers had the traditional NWO song.
Yeah,
What do you
like
thought? The jobbers had their own theme, and then
The Nokia, like it was like a Nokia ringtone.
yeah, exactly.
It was like playing Revenge on
Yes.
N64.
Yeah, like
That everybody had generic wrestling
generic.
music.
Yeah. No, and it's like that's when it started becoming a little bit too much because in the beginning it was like, okay, NWO is represented by these WWF guys. And this is great. Now they're feuding against WCW and they're trying to take over the company or whatever the case is.
Right.
Then you have guys coming over from WWF joining the NWO. I mean, you mentioned Bossman, Bubba Rogers. He was a member at one point. You had the Disciple, who's Buddha's Beefcake. You know, Vincent, aka Virgil,
Right.
$1 Million Man, Ravishing Rick Rude. You know, right? Rick Rude.
Yeah, Rick Rude's
right?
on it. Yeah,
He was. That's the night that he showed up on Raw.
both shows.
Yeah.
On Raw and
He was part of
Nitro.
He was part of DX and part of the NWO.
Yeah, yeah.
Then we're
And
forgetting like Scott Norton.
Scott. I mean, but he's not really a WWF guy.
Oh, true.
And then eventually they started having guys like
From New Japan.
Bagwell. Yeah,
Chono.
Yeah, Masahiro Chono.
Yeah, Muda.
Muda was in
Wow,
NWO.
think about the NWO.
Then it's like every tag team broke up,
Yeah.
and we had one member join NWO.
Stevie
You had
Ray.
Stevie Ray, Steiner.
The flapjack. It was a freaking shoe.
I know,
Flapjack.
man.
It was bad.
Yeah,
It was
he
so
had the
bad.
flap of inside the shoe.
Yes,
That's what he used.
That's when it started taking a turn.
Yeah, it was just
For
becoming
the
like,
worse.
yeah, and it's like you couldn't trust anybody because you felt like there was gonna be a turn and someone was gonna join every week.
Like every week, it ended the same. Somebody got jumped, somebody got spray painted, and after a while, it's just like, all right, you know what?
Right. Like, what was the payoff, right? What is it, right? There wasn't even like a blow off pay per view or
No.
blow off
They had,
storyline. It was just ongoing.
The blow off was Karl Malone.
DDP,
And DDP.
against Rodman and Hogan.
Let me take a step back. A few months back, so Fall Brawl '96, right? The infamous Sting Cobra incident, right, where nobody believed him that it wasn't him. Everyone, you know, or at least kayfabe was like Cobra was the one, the corporate that was doing all this bad stuff, right? And eventually he goes dark. What are your thoughts on that storyline? Sting coming in at the last second, kicking ass, and then leaving, and he has a year where he transitions into the Crow.
No, I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I thought they played it really well. I mean, they did look alike.
they did.
It was pretty cool how, at home you're like, that's not him,
Right.
or is it him? Sting turned, like you can't believe it, but the payoff was good. I liked the way that they did it. I just wish that after the payoff, he wouldn't have been there. Like, what was the point of him being there? And they kept him.
Right.
In the NWO for the whole time. Like, he should have just, all right, you came.
It was a joke.
You were there. You did your thing.
Bogus Sting. That was his name in the game.
And he still, and to this day, he still wrestles that way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he does shows. Bogus Sting.
Bogus Sting.
Wait, bogus.
Yeah.
Bogus.
Bogus Sting
Yeah.
is the thing.
Amazing.
Yeah. He does. I think
let's
last
just-
year
I
he was
wanna
at the
watch
big.
him
He was
now.
at the big event
He was
signing
there.
autographs as Bogus Sting.
That's Bogus
Let's
Sting.
book him on the
We
show.
should. We
Let's
should
get
get him
Bogus
on the
Sting.
show.
Write it down. Bogus
Bonus Sting.
We should.
BBS. But yeah, man. I
What are your
think
thoughts on Bogus Sting?
I
and that
think
whole thing?
there's 3 storylines that stand out to me that made WCW incredibly popular.
I guess at that time, right?
Yeah.
96 to 99, I guess.
99,
Right,
yeah.
right.
And 3 things stand out, which is the NWO, obviously, pushing Sting. Well, because we were talking about Sting, let me mention this as second. Goldberg,
Yes.
right? Because I think that he's one of the few stars that they actually build.
From the power plant, yeah.
Yeah, from the power plant. And then you have the buildup of Sting, the Crow Sting.
Yeah.
And I think the buildup was so incredibly done because he wasn't off screen. He was still on screen. And just him appearing in the rafters,
Right.
watching down, like it's just...
The way they did it,
It was like a movie.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? It told a great story
Right.
about the transition of... You have the colorful beach,
Venice Beach.
Venice Beach
Beach,
Sting, yeah, with the face paint,
paint,
and
blonde hair,
and then all of a sudden it's like this guy felt hurt
Right.
by the fans believing that he was in the NWO
And by WCW.
and WCW.
Man.
He felt so he said, "Screw everybody, I'm just gonna be my own man."
Mm-hmm.
And he was just like depressed or
Right.
something, depressed Sting,
Depressed Sting.
depressed
The
Sting
first thing.
for that whole year.
Yeah.
He was
Emo
it was-
Sting. That's what
Emo
he was.
Sting, yes, emo Sting. And
So-
it was amazing.
So all right. So the summer, I remember '97. Luger wins the belt. Remember, he wins it on a Nitro.
Yeah.
That's another thing. They would give
Another
away
big mistake.
Yeah, they would give away all these like crazy finishes on free TV.
Defeated Hogan with the
with the torture rack.
Torture rack,
and
yeah.
everyone came in like he won the Super Bowl.
lifted
right?
him up. Yeah.
And then Hogan wins the belt 5 days later at Hog Wild.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
It was just a ratings push. That's
Right.
what it was. Ratings and buy rates for the
Right.
pay-per-view to see the rematch, like for the title.
Right away, like literally, like with no build.
Yeah.
Like a
No,
5-day
and the thing is, I feel like they were emphasizing so much on just winning ratings on Mondays.
yeah.
They were giving away stuff for free all the time.
Exactly, and
Right.
I don't think they cared about the pay-per-view buy
rates.
rates. Yeah, they were just
See,
like
Nowadays it's different. Like there's no more. The pay-per-view business is dead. Like,
Right.
everything's
Now it's
through
all
the
streaming.
network.
everything is
Now
just
it's all streaming.
streaming and stuff.
It's about-
So like you can give away those matches on TV, but back then like Luger Hogan for the title.
Luger, Hogan,
And-
Goldberg, and Hogan.
Yeah. Later we'll talk
Like,
about that.
come
in a few
on,
minutes.
in
98,
98?
Georgia Dome, 40,000 people
Dude,
on a Nitro.
Are you kidding me?
Right, on a
Come
Nitro.
on, man.
And that's why they're no longer here.
Yeah,
Because of dumb things like that.
yeah.
Because
Sucks.
rather than being smart and building for later, they wanted to do whatever they could to win, to pop a rating now.
In the short
Yeah.
term.
And just so the viewers know, it's not that we hate WCW.
I actually like
like
WCW.
I honestly wished they survived
Me too.
everything they went through
Yeah.
and that they were still around because it was really entertaining.
It was.
You
It
know,
was.
and there were some amazing moments that happened in that company.
Right.
But, it's just unfortunate that just the bad decisions, just like any company.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you cannot make important financial decisions, you're gonna fail.
Right. Right.
You know?
So, 97, I guess, I don't know if it wasn't the first year or the second year, maybe the third. So they come up with this World War III concept. What are your thoughts? The counter to the Royal Rumble, 60.
Dope.
I loved it. That was the one that
Dope.
I love it. They need to bring that back.
They should have a World War III
Because
again.
If I remember correctly, it was
60 men,
it was
3
it was-
rings.
3
it was
rings.
20 in each ring.
Yes.
Right. So the last man standing from each
Has to
ring
transfer to
has
the
to go to the next
next
one.
ring, yeah.
That was awesome. I'm not even gonna lie. Like
was
that
dope.
Seeing that, like, they lost a lot of seats because they had to put 3 rings, but it was like, yo, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, this is dope.
Yeah, man. I mean,
They had a lot of cool concepts, and War Games,
War
with
Games.
2 rings. But World War III, man, they need to bring that back.
I agree. Especially now with the rosters.
Yeah, they have 60 people.
Freaking so many
First
people.
of all, they can have the men and women's rumble simultaneously.
At the same time, right? Exactly.
That would be cool.
And then have them battle it
Have
out.
the
I guess.
ultimate rumble. The ultimate.
Not chill. I feel like the women will be upset at
Upset
that.
at
They want
that.
their own time
Their
to
own-
shine.
they're
you know?
intergender.
They want their own
Yeah.
pay-per-view again. I think, which they should.
Which should happen.
Yeah. What do you thought? Scott Hall, I know, won one of the years, but he wound up never wrestling the champion. The whole concept was similar to Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
I think 3 happened.
Three of them
Right?
happened,
I think one of them was Giant.
right.
The other one was Scott Hall, and I think the other one was Macho Man.
Right.
I believe.
And they stole the same concept like the Royal Rumble. The winner gets the shot at Super Bowl, which is like
Yeah.
their supposed
WrestleMania.
Well, Hogan was a champion, so Hall never.
He never exercised the clause.
So technically, he's still the number 1
He's still the more
Till this
contender
day.
Yeah.
Wow.
for the WCW.
Just like
heavyweight
Maven.
champion.
Just like Maven still in the
Yeah, he
Royal
got-
Rumble.
he
He
never
never,
got
got eliminated.
From the 02 Rumble.
Yeah.
Right, he's still there.
I forgot what year.
Yeah, it was 02. It was 02.
Yeah, 02.
But yeah, he never, because
Taker.
Hogan was a champ, and then he had like substance abuse issues. So
That's right.
He took some time off.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was an amazing concept.
I thought it was great.
Bring
Should
it
bring
back.
it back.
They should, and you know, it's just one of the things like
Hashtag bring back World War III.
Hashtag
yeah,
World War III.
not the real,
Not the real one. They could
right?
call it World War 4 or 5 or something.
No,
whatever.
just call it like wrestling war
Or
or
war.
something. Because we're living in crazy times.
I know.
right
It could
now.
be a World War 3.
God
actually.
forbid,
I
man.
know. I know.
You'll put that hashtag and people think the wrong thing.
I know.
You get a lot of negative comments on that.
Probably would.
You'll probably get arrested or something.
I know. So 98 comes, right? So, of course, you have the WWE slowly, right? Wow, we've been here almost an hour, right? We have to. Wow, we could actually do part
Nice.
2. I know.
Yeah, let's do this.
going.
Let's rock and
Keep it
roll.
going. Keep it going. So, yeah, so 98 comes, right? WWE, little by little, I call it WrestleMania 14, is their comeback mania, right? Where they hired Mike Tyson as the enforcer, right?
Yeah.
On one side. On the other side, you had the NWO now even more diluted, right? NWO Japan. And then this was when they started splitting up to the Wolf Pack and all that
Red and
stuff.
black,
Red and black.
red and white.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that at that time?
It was a gimmick that ran its course.
Right.
They should have just ended it, and that was it, and just came up with something else. But like splitting it, the Wolf Pack,
And LWO too.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty cool.
LWO was cool.
Yeah,
LWO was cool, but you had like NWO Black and White, NWO
And
Black
silver.
and Red, and then it was like
Oh, wait, I'm
Black and
forgetting
white.
something in big. The Finger Poke of Doom.
Yes.
Right. That was that year, right? Or that was 99.
So that was
Was that 98?
shortly after
Goldberg.
the split.
No, wait.
No. So Goldberg beat Hogan for the title.
All right, in July. I remember
Yeah.
that.
And then Nash ended Goldberg's
Streak.
With that
undefeated
stupid,
streak.
And Starcade in
Because
98.
Scott Hall was dressed like a
Yeah,
security
guard.
guard.
And he
Shocked
shocked
him
him.
or
He
something?
shocked him.
And then
Oh,
Hogan,
Finger Poke. It was 99.
Hogan was out for a while, and he wasn't sure what he was gonna do. And then he came back and he cut a promo. Then they had the match, and then he poked him in the chest, and it was like, even the announcers were like, "What?
What is going on?
What the hell's going on?
Right.
Like, what is this?" And
He
it-
like poked him and he just laid down.
finger poke
he
Nash.
finger poked him. He took a back bump,
Yeah.
and then he pinned him.
Wow.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. What are your thoughts on that? Finger
Horrible.
Poke.
And then
Finger
that's
Poke of
when
Doom.
both the NWO combined again, because it was like Wolfpack and Black and Red, and then Wolfpack and Black and White, and then after that Finger Poke, they
Yeah, and the thing is, like, at this point, as a fan, I lost track. Who's a face,
I
who's
lost
a
interest.
heel,
You kidding?
who's in black and red, who's in black and white.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And then when that happened, it was just like,
we lost interest.
you build a guy like Goldberg up
Yeah.
for over a year to
Right.
be this monster, undefeated streak.
Yeah,
Which
came
was,
at the power plant, got hot in
Yeah.
97, and then eventually
And he never won the
Exactly.
title again, right, Goldberg?
I think one more time.
he might have had like one
Yeah.
final reign, like in 99 or 2000.
it wasn't him and Bret Hart.
No, but Bret was the champ.
Yeah,
That's when he ended his
His
career.
career, when he
Yeah.
kicked him.
yeah.
Right.
And you build this guy up, and all of a sudden he loses his streak
That's it.
with a freaking interference from Hall.
Right.
All of a sudden, it's like
You
you
just beat him.
kill that.
It was easy to beat him.
Yeah, And I mean that streak is still historic to this day.
Right.
But it's just like you pretty much took a crap on it.
Right.
And then you have Hogan coming in and doing the finger poke of doom or whatever, and it's just like, come on, man.
Yeah. And that's when the decline of ratings
Fans just started losing interest.
Yeah.
Yep. And then
Because then
WWE
was becoming more like
what they were in
It was hot.
96.
what they were in 96.
Yeah, it was
Exactly.
hot, man, during that time.
Right.
WWE was really hot, and it's just who came up with these ideas? We don't know.
We know Vince Russo.
Oh, that's right.
Vince
They signed them.
Russo.
They signed them, right? And
He was there.
He came
yeah.
in and he came up with Judy Bagwell on a pole match.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't want to get into Bret Hart too much because we'll talk about it next one, which is gonna be another good hour. But what are your thoughts? He came in as a ref, right? Starrcade '97, and they never lived up to him.
So if they were smart, his contract was up the night after Survivor Series,
which we'll get into the next episode.
Yeah.
Right?
1997.
Yep.
I would have had him debut like a week later.
Right. While it's hot.
Ride that hot wave.
Right.
He came in with like
A month and a half.
Yeah.
Almost like the end of December. Because
and it was just like, he's here.
Yeah.
He didn't fit. For me, he didn't fit in there.
Never fit the WCW.
Like he came in. It was like everybody that comes in, they wrestle Flair. So he came in, he wrestled Flair,
Right.
put him in a sharpshooter, won the match, and it was just like, meh.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And
Meanwhile-
it was just the way he was introduced.
And then on the other channel, DX thriving, Shawn
Exactly.
Michaels thriving, everything, Attitude Era was being born, and it's just like the guy at the center of all this. It's just like,
It
whatever.
sucked. And like
Pointless.
Right.
I don't even know. And wasn't Brett upset at the fact that they introduced him? They brought him into as a ref, right?
I think so. I think he was upset about
Wasn't
it.
he
He's
upset
been
about
vocal
it?
about it.
He's been vocal about a lot of
Yeah,
things.
but it's just like, how is it that you bring this superstar who's a top guy in WWF for many years, and then nobody really had we all had an idea that he left. We all knew, but we didn't know when he was gonna appear. And like you said, a week later,
Yeah.
or just sometime soon, like just bring him in as a surprise.
Right.
Don't announce it. You know what I mean? And just have him come in, interfere in a match, or do a run-in.
Right.
And in my opinion, bring him in as a heel.
Yeah.
Or as a whatever. It
Ride
doesn't-
that
it doesn't
wave
matter.
from the
Yeah.
wave. From the
from the screw job.
Yeah.
Not even the screw job, but he was a face in Canada and a heel in America.
Yeah.
Ride that wave. I would have had him come out. I would have had him beat down Sting, and I would have had him cut a heel promo.
Not even,
Yeah.
bro. You know who I would have had him come in and just start beating on Nash and Hall.
And Hall.
Because those are HBK's boys.
Right. And they
You
could have
know,
played off that
they
storyline
could
with the
have
click.
played
With the
exactly.
click. That's
They
a good
could
one.
have played that
You're
off.
right.
Yeah.
You know
You're
what I
absolutely
mean? They
right.
could have played it off like, yo, this. Oh, you cool with HBK? I'm gonna come in there and I'm gonna just kick your ass.
They could have had it like X-Pac laid out in the back, and then next segment
Exactly.
Scott Hall's laid out, and
Exactly.
then Nash is having a match, and the lights
and
go
nobody
out.
knows what's going
Yeah.
on. Or you could have X-Pac laid out Six laid out in the back with like the Canadian flag on him,
Right.
or something like with pink and
Pink and black.
black.
Yeah,
or
it would have
whatever.
been, but
It would've been
so many
too
options,
many
man. And
options.
it's like
Right. And then he could have brought. Well, they were together somewhat, right? Neidhart was there for a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Hot,
and
quick minute,
Bulldog.
and Bulldog as well. They could have had a mini Hart Foundation
Yeah.
faction, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even Pillman was already
passed.
deceased at that time.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, man. So 99. Fast forward back to 99. So finger poke of doom, and then WWE starts rising, right? So then now you have. What are your thoughts now? So you have WrestleMania 15, right, on one side, and then you have the NWO still going on. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts? And the whole Vince Russo, the whole Jeff Jarrett thing with
Yeah.
Booker T. What are your thoughts on that?
So there was good and bad to the Russo era. I mean, the good was he elevated guys like Booker T.
Booker T.
They, if not for that, he would have never been a world champion. DDP,
Yeah.
winning the title. Steiner. There's a lot of guys that got elevated, but then you had dumb stuff like, the David Arquette.
Yep.
And that crazy 4-tier cage match that they had with weapons on every...
That's from the movie, from the Ready to Rumble
Yeah,
movie.
Ready
Right.
to Rumble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, they just did a lot of stuff, like they're making fun of JR and
Ed Ferrara. I think
it was just like, you know, a lot of the gimmicks were dumb. I think there was like a match where there was like a box.
Yes, that's where I got the concept.
Yeah.
The belt in the box.
Belt in the box, and then Booker T grabs the box, and the belt fell out, and it was just like, oh crap.
Yeah.
So it was just like a lot of stupid. Like it wasn't WCW.
No,
right?
and I mean, we're talking about now like 99, 2000.
Yeah, 99. Yeah, heading into 2000, right?
So yeah, like it was just it was very weird. I felt like it was just. I mean, let's not forget the night that they announced Mick Foley winning the championship.
Oh yeah, giving away the results.
Because Raw used to be pre-taped.
It was the end of 98.
Yeah, and that's when the ratings shifted.
Yeah,
and that's when WCW started losing in ratings. Because how many weeks in a row was it?
83. That's why I was making fun of
83 weeks.
Yeah,
83. So 83 weeks in a row.
83, and then
won.
they lost when Austin fought McMahon on Raw. And then they traded ratings back and forth. Yeah. But then after Foley, that was it.
Yeah.
Was it. They never lost again.
Never lost
again. And that's when Raw was like must see, and then Nitro was just like what a stupidity they're gonna do today.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, they lost steam in regards to NWO.
Exactly.
They pretty
then
much.
Then Goldberg got hurt. I remember
Goldberg
he kicked or punched something.
Yeah,
he cut his
arm.
He cut his arm.
Yeah,
right?
he almost died.
Yeah.
Cut an artery, right?
Yeah.
It's
they had Tank Abbott.
It
was like
no, and then they also started bringing in like the hardcore matches.
Yeah, they had a lot.
They had Sandman, Hardcore Hack.
Yeah, Hardcore Hack. They had Bam Bam.
They hired a lot of WCW guys. I mean, the ECW guys.
Yeah, a lot of, because the thing is now ECW is losing a lot of the guys. Right. They're going to WWF, or WWE. They're going to WCW. Hardcore matches were in at that time,
right?
You know, and I felt like they
lost their identity.
They lost their identity. Yeah. And now you have the guys that they signed for millions of dollars just being part-time.
Right.
Part-time. You have Macho Man who like totally changed his gimmick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's
like changed his look. Yeah, he's with Gorgeous George.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm a huge Macho Man fan, like the biggest ever. But ever. But I didn't like that, man. No. Like I missed the old Macho Man. He came out, he looked like you said, he looked like a pimp, you know, and he was juiced up, man. He was big too, you know. You have Steiner as one of the top guys, Jeff Jarrett as one of the top guys.
Slap nuts, the whole thing.
Like,
with
so
guitar,
the problem with the top guys from a few years prior was like their contracts.
Right.
So they could sit at home and then
they
had it in their contract, like, you know, like Hogan had it in his contract that he could win the title whenever he wanted.
Wow.
So that's what happened at Bash at the Beach.
Oh, right.
You know, they had to change the whole card. He wanted
Jarrett, right?
He wanted to face Jarrett for the title. He wanted the title shot, so Jarrett just laid down.
Yeah. And stuff like that. That's when we knew, like,
oh yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
WCW.
It won't be around much longer.
Yeah. Like when you have, like, on screen, you have these wrestlers going against management,
right?
And you know it's a shoot. It's, I mean, and you know there's a debate whether it
was a shoot, was it work,
or was it work?
Yeah, that was definitely.
But that was a shoot.
Yeah.
You know, and like when you start noticing stuff like that, it's like, all right, and we're not talking about like how, you know, Vince used to do stuff on screen,
right?
To, you know, and you don't know if it was a shoot. I mean, we'll talk about that later time, but. Yeah, man, it's just, you know, and then you got the new breed.
Wait, no, wait. 2000. I'm going to talk about that. We're gonna jump into 2000. The New Blood versus the Millionaires Club.
The New Blood.
I actually like that storyline.
It was good because they had a lot of young.
Yeah.
I think AJ Styles was part of that.
O'Hare.
Yeah.
Had,
Jindrak, O'Hare.
Yeah.
Mike Sanders.
Above average.
Above average.
Yes,
you have Stasiak, Sean Stasiak.
Yeah, Billy Kidman. He beat Hulk Hogan.
He beat Hogan.
He beat Hogan.
I don't even want to talk about that.
He beat Hulk Hogan.
I don't want to talk about
You want
that.
to talk about that?
Yo, it was good. It was all right. Because
Right.
Kidman is a talented man.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
he's a talented wrestler.
He
but
holds 2 victories over Hulk Hogan.
yeah,
Clean.
man.
Clean.
Yo, I think Hogan was just like,
Who cares at this point?
yo, I don't
getting paid,
I don't
brother.
care. I don't care. Yeah.
What are your thoughts? They issued it. Basically, it was old versus new. They would try to but it was a little too late to me. Too little, too late.
It
It
was
was
too
too
late.
little, too late.
Yeah.
Had they done this like a year prior, it would have been dope, and the build to it would have been awesome. But at the same time, you know, a lot of the guys
unestablished still.
They're already on their way out.
they
Anyway.
were like, yeah, I ain't showing up. I'm getting paid whether
Yeah.
I'm here or not. So
Right.
what was the point? But I liked it because it helped elevate some of these guys, and they got a chance after, you know, when they left from there and they became something else, like either at WWE or TNA or whatever.
Right.
I liked the feud. I thought it was dope. I like the promo where Mean Gene goes ballistic and starts cursing them out. Like, that was crazy.
Yeah. Right.
But then it's like, yo, this is Mean Gene Okerlund. Like,
Right.
this ain't, like, what the hell's going on here? Like, the whole WCW just lost their
It's like
identity,
he broke
man.
character.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
They just lost their identity. Like, as time was going on, they just, it was like, this isn't the same company from, like, you know, you were going to get solid wrestling. All the solid wrestlers were leaving. All of them were jumping ship.
Yeah.
And everyone else that stayed is because they were brand new in the industry and they just getting called up and
Right.
you know.
And I mean, the feud, it was a good feud, but what I didn't like is that it was obvious what they were trying to do.
Right.
It was they were pushing all these guys,
Right.
and they're all defeating these legends. You know, they're like it's all happening at the same time.
Exactly.
It's not like they're
It's
building
not organically, right?
Yeah,
Or slow build.
it's like
right?
they're telling you, like, hey, we have these young guys,
Right.
the new blood,
Right.
and we have all these legends who's a millionaires
Millionaires
club,
Club.
and we're just gonna shit on those older men.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just like pretty much, you know, you have these guys going over Flair,
Yeah.
Hogan, Nash, and it's
Yeah.
just like it's obvious what they're doing.
Right.
And it was kind of sad to see, man.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like you have these
changing
these-
of the, what is it, passing the torch, but a little too fast.
but it was
torch.
it was like all these guys, like, yeah, here, you get a torch, you get a torch,
Exactly,
you get a
get a
torch.
torch.
Like, get out of here, man.
Right,
You know
right.
what I mean? Like, it wasn't organic. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, oh, you know, we have like Booker T, for example. Booker T was this young, talented wrestler who they gave the ball to,
Right.
and it worked out. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But and it's like, all right, you know, that's good, you know. But then you have these guys that haven't proved they didn't prove anything.
Right.
No.
They had what did they prove
They had no business being in the ring.
with those
those
guys?
guys.
Right.
Yeah, that's like saying like right now, like the current product, I don't even want to put in the same category,
right.
but it's kind of because you know they're all talented. But I'm saying like if like you have these young guys coming from the indies into NXT, and then all of a sudden they go to WWE and they're challenging against. That actually worked though with Nexus, if you think about it.
Yeah,
right?
but they were there for a while.
But they were for a while.
They
It
paid
was
the
like
dues, you know,
yeah,
somewhat.
it was. Yeah, so
Right.
it's kind of like saying, you know, because
It's like
at least we've
it's
seen
like if
those guys on
Orange
TV.
Cassidy was to go and beat Triple H. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
It's true.
Yeah, but he would have gotten a huge pop though.
You're
He gets Austin pops all the time. But no, but it's true. Like, what did those guys prove? We haven't seen those guys on TV for a long time.
No, right.
And they're in the ring against these like legendary wrestlers, and you know,
See, the difference though with Nexus is they did it with one guy.
Wade Barrett.
No, they
Oh, Cena.
attacked John Cena.
Cena.
One guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Them was just like, all right, you're facing Hogan, you're facing Flair, you're facing this.
All-
You're
all
all,
the time.
you're
No,
all
you're
going
right.
over.
You're right. You're right.
Doesn't
Yo,
make any sense.
yeah,
Exactly.
you're right.
So 2001 is their final year, right? They only made it to Sin was that last or whatever, the March pay-per-view, whatever that was.
Sid broke his leg.
Sid, he broke his leg. He broke his leg at Sin. The last pay-per-view was March, right? So what was the backstory? Do you remember the backstory between why WCW? What led up into 2 weeks before WrestleMania that they shut the doors down?
So AOL Time Warner merged, and
That's right.
they no longer wanted anything to do with wrestling. I know Eric Bischoff had put together, he got a group of investors, Fusion Media or something. They were going to buy the company, and they all agreed to a deal. And then something happened at Time Warner, AOL, where they said, you know what, on our network, TNT, we don't want wrestling anymore. So they called Bischoff, and they were like, the deal's off. They don't want to air the product. So without a channel to air the product, it's like, what's the point of having WCW? Because the plan, they had a pay-per-view, they had a whole plan. They were going to shut down March, close for 6 months, and then they were going to relaunch with a pay-per-view. And I can't remember the name of the pay-per-view, but they had like a whole marketing. There's a video online of the commercial for the pay-per-view and everything, and then it just never
aired.
It never happened. And then I think Vince got word, or they called Vince McMahon, and he bought the tape library for $2 million.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow. It's sad, man.
What are your thoughts, man?
WCW. Oh man, like
even thinking of the final Nitro. What do you think
just
of
the final
that?
night. It was kind of
we watched it together. We
yeah.
all got together to watch it.
I'm not gonna front. It was sad.
It was.
You know, no, especially the last match in WCW history is Sting versus Ric Flair.
Ric Flair. Yeah.
Wow. And just seeing them in tears, hugging afterwards, you know, and just knowing that this company that's been around for so long and gave us so many memories that they're just done. They're done. And the thing is that we did not know what Vince was going to do with this company. Right. And especially with all the talent that they had.
Right.
I mean,
he could have seriously kept it around and kept it operating as a separate entity, which he didn't, obviously.
No, yeah. And the thing is, I think he wanted to do that. I think
that was the plan.
I saw it. I saw it on a few documentaries.
It created that logo, right? The logo.
That he wanted to
do
that.
Plan was in the beginning stages, the second hour of Raw was going to be Nitro.
Right.
And then Booker T had that match with Buff, and then that was it.
Yeah, but that was done incorrectly, man.
Right.
They were in a WWE town.
Right? Well, the thing, not only that, like they you're right. They should have waited a week after they were in Atlanta. They should have done it there.
They should have done it.
But then also Buff did an interview, and he said like that whole day, he was getting direction from everybody. Don't look at the camera. Don't do your pose. Just go to the ring and do your job. And then he was just like, what do I do? And then he got labeled with a bad attitude, and then he got fired. So it was just like, okay.
He was set to fail. Right?
Yeah, I think they were set to fail. Yeah. And I mean, even then, like Vince, the first night he announced that he bought WCW, he like fired Jeff Jarrett. Straight off the bat. Yeah. Fired him on TV, and again, we don't know what was going to happen. At the time, we weren't involved in reading the being
dirt
all up in the internet, reading the dirt sheets and everything like that. So I didn't know about the contracts. I just remember thinking to myself, like, wow, does this mean Ric Flair, Hogan, Nash, Hall, Steiner, Booker T, all these guys are gonna come over right away. Yeah. Like, what's gonna happen? But unfortunately, later on down the road, I found out that because of their contracts, a lot of the main players, and this is why the invasion angle sucked. Right. A lot of the main players, they sat out their contracts. They sat out their contracts, which is smart. Yeah. I don't blame them. They got a chance
guaranteed
to
money,
rest their bodies and just sit in their couch, chill, collect millions of dollars. Right. Not a bad.
I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts? I miss WCW, man. I really do.
I miss it because they gave us a lot of good memories. But we have the network now to go back. They produced a lot of good stars, but I miss it.
It's like. How do I say, like Magic and Bird, right? Right. They brought out the best of each other. Right. Yeah. And I think WWE and WWF, WWE, whatever, and WCW, they brought out the best of each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, if WCW didn't exist, we wouldn't have had the Attitude Era. Exactly. In my opinion, I don't think DX would have been around, or all the great stuff that we saw from WWE during that time period between 96 and 2000. I don't think it would have been possible because, I mean, now if you think about the current product, they don't have the competition. So they could put out whatever they want. Right. And it's
what
like
they're doing now.
Yeah, which is what they're doing now. And it's like fans are just questioning everything that they see, and the ratings are low. Right. Ratings are are the lowest it's been in a long time, you know.
Right.
So, you know, I miss it for those reasons, you know, and I mean, you know, I hope somehow they bring like do some sort of like pay-per-view or something, like a reunion special
right.
with, you know, a lot of the old stars
They
from
do
WCW.
every Wednesday. AEW, WCW.
Yo, we should talk about AEW one episode.
TNA,
and just
in
have
the
him
early
rant.
stages.
Just have him rant about it.
Exactly.
The early stages of TNA was
Yeah.
WCW.
Yeah.
On
On that note, Jim Wrestle vibes, Sosa, episode 1. Tune in next week. Montreal Screwjob. We out.
Yes, sir.
Peace.